Wife buried his memory while he was alive and hiding next door the entire time. What would you do if the person you thought was dead was actually living next door? The neighbor you wave to each morning, the house you pass every day, hiding the husband you buried in memory, but who breathes just feet away from your doorstep. Have you ever felt so trapped in a relationship that you'd do anything to escape? The weight of broken promises crushing your chest, the cycle of disappointment draining your soul, until freedom seems worth any price, even the most extreme deception imaginable. Welcome to Mr. Body Crime, where today we explore one of the most shocking cases of marital escape ever documented. The story of a wife who meticulously staged her husband's death while keeping him captive in plain sight. Before we begin this incredible journey through deception, betrayal, and justice, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories that will change how you view the world around you. The amber light of late afternoon bathes Willow Creek, a suburban neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. From above, you'd see perfect rows of homes with manicured lawns, children's bicycles abandoned on driveways, and neighbors chatting across fences. This community prides itself on knowing everything about everyone, or so they believe. Yet behind closed doors and drawn curtains, secrets fester in silence, growing more dangerous with each passing day. In one modest home on Maplewood Drive lives Naomi Carter, 38, a nurse at Atlanta Memorial whose colleagues describe her as the kind of person you'd want at your bedside during your darkest hour. Her warm smile greets patients each morning as she moves through hospital corridors with quiet efficiency. At community gatherings, she's the first to arrive with homemade cookies, the last to leave after cleaning up. Neighbors speak of her in glowing terms, how she single-handedly raised her daughter Imani after her husband's tragic accident, how she volunteers at the local shelter despite her grueling work schedule. Naomi is strength personified, says her friend and fellow nurse, Elaine Thompson. After losing Darius, most people would have crumbled, but she rebuilt her life brick by brick, never complaining, never asking for pity. What Elaine and the entire community of Willow Creek don't realize is that everything they believe about Naomi Carter is built on an elaborate fabrication. The memorial service where they mourned Darius Carter's passing, a carefully orchestrated performance. The tearful widow accepting condolences, a masterclass in deception, because Darius Carter isn't dead. For the past year, while neighbors brought casseroles to comfort the grieving widow, while friends praised her resilience, while police closed the case of his disappearance, Darius has been breathing, suffering, and plotting his escape from a basement less than 30 feet from the home he once shared with his wife. This is the story of how a desperate woman buried her husband's memory while he was still alive, and how the truth finally came to light. July 17, 2022, a date etched into the collective memory of Willow Creek. According to police reports, Darius Carter vanished after a heated argument with his wife Naomi. Their neighbors reported hearing raised voices around 10 p.m., followed by the screech of tires as Darius's black Ford Escape tore down Maplewood Drive, disappearing into the night. He'd never stay out all night without calling. Naomi told officers the next morning, her voice breaking as she filed the missing persons report. "Something's wrong. I can feel it." 3 days later, a jogger spotted Darius's abandoned vehicle parked at a secluded lookout point overlooking the Chattahoochee River. The driver's door hung open. Inside, police found Darius's wallet, wedding ring, and cell phone placed neatly on the passenger seat. His keys remained in the ignition. Search teams combed the riverbanks for weeks. Dive teams explored the murky depths while helicopters scanned the surrounding woods. Volunteers from Willow Creek joined the search, forming human chains through dense undergrowth, calling Darius's name until their voices grew hoarse. But no trace of him emerged from the rushing waters. The current was exceptionally strong that week due to heavy rainfall, explained Sheriff Michael Donovan at a press conference 6 weeks after the disappearance. "We believe Mr. Carter may have approached the water's edge, perhaps slipped and was carried downstream. At this point, we're transitioning from a rescue to a recovery operation." The memorial service held at Riverside Chapel drew over 200 people. Co-workers from the construction company, where Darius had worked as a foreman for 15 years, filled rows of seats. Naomi sat in the front pew, one arm around 16-year-old Imani, whose face remained hidden behind dark sunglasses throughout the service. Darius was the kind of man who lit up any room he entered, his brother Tyrell said in his eulogy. His laugh was contagious, his loyalty unwavering. unwavering. He leaves behind a void that can never be filled. But as mourners placed white roses on the empty casket, as Naomi accepted embraces and whispered condolences, as the community began the process of healing, a shocking reality existed just one property away. Darius Carter was alive. In the basement of Marcus Bell's home, the quiet, reclusive neighbor who had attended the memorial service and offered his condolences with downcast eyes, Darius existed in a strange limbo between captivity and hiding. The space, originally built as a storm shelter, had been converted into a sparse living quarter. A twin mattress on the floor, a portable toilet hidden behind a makeshift curtain, a small table with a battery-powered lamp. For Darius, days blurred together in the windowless space. He marked time by the creaking of floorboards above as Marcus moved through his morning routine, by the distant sounds of neighborhood children waiting for the school bus, by the faint scent of his wife's signature gardenia perfume carried on the breeze when she watered plants in her backyard, mere steps from his underground prison. At night, he would often press his ear against the cold concrete wall, listening to the sounds of the home he once shared with his family. Sometimes he heard Amani's music, sometimes Naomi's laughter as she spoke on the phone. The proximity was psychological torture, freedom and his former life tantalizingly close, yet completely out of reach. What the community couldn't know was that Darius's disappearance wasn't a tragic accident. It was an elaborately constructed escape plan gone terribly wrong, a plan that had transformed him from missing husband to living ghost. Naomi and Darius Carter's love story began 19 years earlier at Atlanta Technical College. She was studying nursing. He was completing a certification in construction management. Their first meeting, a spilled coffee, an offered napkin, shy smiles exchanged across the campus cafeteria, blossomed into what friends called an ideal partnership. They complemented each other perfectly, recalls Janice Woods, Naomi's college roommate. Naomi was methodical, cautious, always planning 3 steps ahead. Darius lived in the moment, brought spontaneity and laughter into her structured world. Their wedding, held at Naomi's grandmother's church, was modest but joyful. The couple purchased their first home on Maplewood Drive when Naomi was 7 months pregnant with Amani. Early photographs show them painting nursery walls together, planting a garden, hosting barbecues for new neighbors. Darius's construction career flourished as he rose from apprentice to foreman. Naomi established herself as a dedicated nurse at Atlanta Memorial. The first fractures appeared in their 10th year of marriage. Darius began disappearing for hours without explanation. Money vanished from their joint account. Credit card statements arrived with charges from casinos in neighboring states. He swore each time it would be the last. Naomi confided to her sister Tanya. He'd cry, promise to change, attend a few gamblers' anonymous meetings. Then, 3 weeks later, I'd find betting slips in his jacket pockets. By year 15, their financial security had crumbled. The second mortgage they took out to consolidate debts only provided temporary relief before Darius's gambling consumed those funds too. Their home, once a source of pride, faced foreclosure twice, saved only by loans from Naomi's parents that strained those relationships to breaking point. The gambling alone might have been survivable. The infidelities proved more devastating. The first time I found evidence he was cheating, I convinced myself it was a momentary weakness, Naomi later told investigators. By the 4th time, I realized this was who he'd become. Text messages from women with pet names for him. Hotel charges on weekends. He claimed to be working overtime. Lipstick smudges on collar cuffs that Naomi, with clinical detachment, documented in a journal she kept hidden beneath her mattress. For Darius's part, friends described a man increasingly trapped between addiction and guilt. His co-worker James Tillman remembers conversations during lunch breaks. Darius would talk about wanting to be better, to be the man Naomi and Amani deserved. Then payday would come, and the cycle would begin again. Amani, growing from child to teenager amid this dysfunction, developed her own coping mechanisms. Her academic excellence and involvement in school activities kept her away from home as much as possible. When asked about her parents, she became expert at changing the subject. The argument that changed everything occurred on that July night when mounting tensions finally exploded. Naomi had discovered nearly $50,000 missing from Amani's college fund. Money Darius had promised would remain untouched. "You've taken everything," neighbors heard Naomi shout. "My trust, my security, my dignity." What kind of man steals his daughter's future? What those neighbors couldn't hear was Darius's bitter response. that he felt suffocated by Naomi's holier-than-thou attitude, that her constant disappointment drove him to seek comfort elsewhere, that he would rather be dead than live another day with her judgment. Words hurled like weapons, leaving wounds that would never heal. After Darius stormed out, Naomi sat alone in their kitchen, staring at bank statements showing insurmountable debt, at a foreclosure notice, at divorce papers she'd hidden in her desk drawer but lacked courage to serve. In that moment of despair, a knock came at her back door. Marcus Bell stood there, his tall frame blocking the porch light. The neighbor of 5 years had always remained distant, exchanging only brief nods when their paths crossed. Now his eyes held something Naomi had never seen before, understanding and a disturbing proposition. "I heard everything," he said quietly, "and I think there's a way out for you. A permanent solution to your Darius problem. Before we continue this shocking true story, pause and ask yourself, what would you do in Naomi's position? Trapped in a destructive marriage, facing financial ruin, and carrying the burden of protecting your child's future. How far would you go to escape? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Marcus Bell's proposition was as bold as it was disturbing. Speaking in measured tones at Naomi's kitchen table, he outlined his plan with unsettling clarity. Darius doesn't need to actually die, Marcus explained, his fingers drumming methodically against the wooden surface. He just needs everyone to believe he's dead. I can help make that happen. The plan he described involved capitalizing on Darius's current absence. They would move his car to the Riverside lookout point, leave personal items inside to suggest he'd abandoned the vehicle. Marcus had connections with local fishermen who would report seeing a man matching Darius's description stumbling near the water's edge in the darkness. The river's current is strong this time of year, Marcus continued. The authorities will search for weeks, but eventually they'll declare him presumed dead. No body needed. Naomi listened with growing horror and, she would later admit, a flicker of desperate hope. "Why would you help me?" she asked, studying the man she barely knew despite years of living next door. Marcus's response chilled her. "I want 30% of the insurance money." Naomi's $750,000 life insurance policy on Darius had been purchased years earlier when their marriage was solid. Now it represented a fortune that could clear their debts and secure Imani's education. "I can't do this," Naomi initially protested, pushing away from the table. "This is wrong. It's criminal. More wrong than what he's done to you." Marcus countered. "More criminal than stealing your daughter's future? He said he'd rather be dead than married to you. I'm just helping make that statement come true without anyone actually dying." For 3 days, Naomi wrestled with the proposition. She consulted no one, carrying the weight of the decision alone while Darius remained absent, presumably at one of his gambling haunts. She created lists of pros and cons, played out scenarios, and searched for alternative solutions to their crushing debt. On the 4th day, she called Marcus. The execution of their plan proceeded with calculated precision. Darius, when he finally returned home, found Naomi unnaturally calm, apologetic about their fight. She encouraged him to clear his head with a drive that evening. The drugged coffee she served ensured he was semi-conscious when Marcus intercepted his vehicle. Together, they transported an incoherent Darius to Marcus's basement. While he remained sedated, they moved his car to the predetermined location by the river, arranging the personal items to suggest abandonment before disappearance. The following morning, Naomi reported her husband missing, her performance convincing enough to fool the responding officers. The planted witnesses came forward with their fabricated sightings. The search ensued exactly as Marcus had predicted. With each passing week, as hope for finding Darius diminished, Naomi's financial future brightened. The insurance company required a 6-month waiting period for missing persons presumed dead. Creditors agreed to temporary holds given the circumstances. For the first time in years, Naomi saw a path to freedom. Freedom from debt, from humiliation, from the cycle of broken promises. All it required was maintaining the fiction that the basement prisoner next door didn't exist. The basement that became Darius Carter's world measured 15 feet by 12. Concrete walls absorbed both sound and hope. A single bulb cast harsh light that Marcus controlled from upstairs. The space contained minimal furnishings, a mattress without frame, a plastic chair, a bucket for waste, and a small table where meals appeared at irregular intervals. "You should be thanking me," Marcus told him during those early weeks. "I saved your life. Naomi wanted you gone permanently. This arrangement keeps everyone happy." Whether this claim was true or manipulation, Darius couldn't know. What began as a temporary solution stretched into weeks, then months, as Marcus explained the official story unfolding outside. The search parties, the memorial service, Naomi collecting life insurance. They've all moved on, Marcus would say, showing Darius newspaper clippings about his disappearance. You're already forgotten. The physical confinement, though brutal, paled compared to the psychological torment. Through the basement's single air vent, Darius could hear fragments of his former life. The morning bus that stopped for Imani. The weekend gatherings where neighbors' laughter filtered through, sometimes including Naomi's voice. Even the distinct sound of his own lawn mower, now operated by someone else. Marcus initially positioned himself as Darius's protector, bringing decent meals and occasional amenities, a radio, magazines, playing cards. Their relationship followed a strange rhythm, with Marcus sometimes spending hours in the basement, playing chess or sharing drinks while discussing his own failed marriage. We're not so different, Marcus would muse. Both victims of women who didn't appreciate us. But as months passed, Marcus grew increasingly erratic. Drinking sessions turned into bitter monologues. Meals became sporadic. The basement door remained locked for days, while Marcus vanished on unexplained trips. She hasn't paid me what she promised, Marcus complained during one of his increasingly rare visits. Your wife is enjoying the insurance money while I'm stuck babysitting you. The cruelest reality was proximity. During quiet nights, Darius could press his ear against the eastern wall and hear faint sounds from his own home, just 27 feet away. Occasionally, he caught Imani's voice calling to her friends, the television's distant murmur, even Naomi's phone conversations on her back porch. Once, during a neighborhood power outage, he heard Naomi comforting Imani about her fear of darkness. The same woman who had engineered his disappearance was capable of such tenderness. This contradiction tormented him more than any physical discomfort. Darius began marking days on the wall with a rusty nail, not toward freedom, but toward revenge. Each scratch represented another day of betrayal, another 24 hours where he existed as both dead and alive, a quantum state of vengeance building in the shadows beneath suburban normalcy. Imani Carter possessed a quiet intelligence that made her both an excellent student and a keen observer. At 16, she carried herself with a maturity born from years navigating her parents' troubled relationship. While classmates obsessed over social media and dating, Imani found refuge in academic excellence, maintaining a 4.0 GPA despite the chaos at home. The official story of her father's disappearance never sat right with her. Though she participated in the memorial service, wearing the black dress her mother selected, something about Naomi's grief struck her as rehearsed. The tears came at appropriate moments, but dried too quickly when others weren't watching. Dad was a lot of things. Imani confided to her journal 3 months after the memorial, but he wasn't suicidal, and he was too good a swimmer to accidentally drown. Initially, she attributed her doubts to denial, the natural response to losing a parent. Her school counselor assured her that questioning tragic events was part of processing grief. Yet Imani's doubts persisted, transforming from vague feelings into concrete suspicions as she noticed inconsistencies in her new reality. The first red flag appeared when she discovered her mother had changed the locks the very day after reporting her father missing, before any search had even begun. Then came the hushed phone calls Naomi conducted from the backyard, conversations that abruptly ended whenever Imani approached. Most puzzling was her mother's changed attitude toward their neighbor, Marcus Bell. Previously, Naomi had described him as that strange man who never talks to anyone. Now they exchanged meaningful glances during community gatherings and had what appeared to be intentionally casual conversations over the fence. It's like they're performing for an audience that isn't there, Imani wrote in her journal. 6 months after her father's disappearance, Imani began keeping a log of Marcus's comings and goings. She noted his twice-daily trips to his basement with food trays, despite living alone. She documented the new padlock on his basement door and the blackout curtains installed on his ground-level windows. The verification of her suspicions came on a rainy Tuesday evening in January. Returning from debate team practice earlier than expected, Imani cut through the side yard between their properties. A flash of lightning illuminated Marcus's basement window precisely as he exited, leaving the door ajar. In that brief electric moment, Imani glimpsed a figure inside, gaunt and bearded, but unmistakably her father. The shock froze her in place, rain soaking through her jacket as her mind struggled to process what she'd seen. Her father was alive. Her mother had lied. Their neighbor was involved. Rather than confronting her mother immediately, Imani made a strategic decision. Years of navigating family dysfunction had taught her caution. If her father was being held captive, direct confrontation could put him in danger. Instead, she began gathering evidence. She positioned her phone to record Marcus's basement door from her bedroom window. She documented conversations between her mother and Marcus, timing their interactions. She even collected her mother's phone when Naomi was showering and photographed text exchanges with Marcus that referred cryptically to our arrangement and keeping things contained. "I will find out what happened to you, Dad," she whispered to the ceiling of her bedroom, "and I will bring you home." What do you think happens next in this shocking true crime case? Does Imani confront her mother? Does Darius attempt escape? Or does someone else discover the truth? Leave your theories in the comments below. We'd love to see if you can predict the next twist in this extraordinary story. Detective Simone Hayes didn't fit the Hollywood image of a police detective. No dramatic coat, no tortured past, no addiction to cloud her judgment. Instead, she brought meticulous observation skills, unwavering patience, and a reputation for solving cases others had abandoned. At 45, with 20 years in law enforcement, Hayes specialized in cold cases and missing persons investigations. "People leave traces," she often told her colleagues. "Our job is to notice what others overlook." The Darius Carter case landed on her desk through an anonymous tip delivered to the Atlanta Police Department's online portal. The message was brief but compelling. Darius Carter is alive. Check Marcus Bell's basement at 1422 Maplewood Drive. Look for the new padlock and blackout curtains. Video evidence available. Attached was a grainy clip showing a bearded man moving past a basement window, a man who resembled the supposedly deceased Darius Carter. Hayes approached the tip with professional skepticism. Anonymous reports often led nowhere, especially in cases already closed. Yet something about the specificity intrigued her enough to request the Carter file. The river search was comprehensive, her superior noted when she requested to reopen the investigation. "What makes you think this is credible?" The tipster knew details not released to the public. Hayes replied, "And the timeline has inconsistencies worth examining." Her investigation began quietly. She interviewed neighbors about Marcus Bell, discovering his reputation as a loner who rarely participated in community events until after Darius's disappearance. Several residents mentioned his sudden friendship with Naomi Carter, a connection that seemed to materialize overnight. Hayes obtained utility records showing Marcus's water usage had nearly doubled in the months since Darius vanished. His grocery deliveries, tracked through loyalty card data, now included twice the food one person would reasonably consume. Surveillance cameras discreetly positioned near Bell's property captured his twice-daily trips to the basement with food trays. Hayes paired this with thermal imaging that revealed a consistent heat signature in the basement, evidence of continuous human presence. Most damning was the financial trail. Hayes discovered large transfers from Naomi's account to Marcus's shortly after the insurance payout, carefully structured to avoid banking alerts. "We're building a case for fraud, kidnapping, and conspiracy," Hayes briefed her team. "But we need ironclad evidence before moving in." These two have been careful. The breakthrough came when Hayes approached Marcus directly, not with accusations, but with calculated misinformation. "We've reopened the investigation into Darius Carter's disappearance," she informed him during an unannounced visit. "New evidence suggests foul play by someone in the Chattahoochee River area. We're interviewing all neighbors as potential witnesses." The strategy worked. Marcus began making mistakes. He was spotted by surveillance teams attempting to move items from his basement at night. He made panic calls to Naomi that were now being monitored. He purchased one-way tickets to Mexico using a newly created email account. Hayes obtained a search warrant based on the accumulating evidence. Before executing it, she positioned officers around both properties, ensuring no one could flee and no evidence could be destroyed. When confronted with the warrant, Marcus crumbled immediately. His confession poured out in a torrent of self-preservation. It was Naomi's idea, he insisted, hands shaking as he surrendered his basement key. She wanted him gone. I just helped with the logistics. He's down there alive. I've been keeping him there, just like she paid me to do. At 5:17 a.m., police vehicles silently surrounded both the Carter residence and Marcus Bell's home. Detective Hayes directed the operation with hand signals, positioning tactical officers at all exits. On her command, simultaneous raids commenced, officers breaching the front door of Marcus's house, while another team approached Naomi's. Atlanta police. Search warrant. The announcement echoed through both homes as flashlight beams cut through pre-dawn darkness. In Marcus's basement, officers discovered a scene that confirmed their worst suspicions. Darius Carter sat hunched on a thin mattress, his once athletic frame reduced to sharp angles and hollow spaces. His beard had grown wild, his eyes sunken into dark circles. When the basement door crashed open, he didn't flee or celebrate. He simply stared, as if freedom were a concept too abstract to comprehend. "Sir, are you Darius Carter?" an officer asked, approaching cautiously. "I used to be," came his hoarse reply. Across the yard, Naomi met officers in her kitchen, dressed in nursing scrubs, as if preparing for an early shift. Her composed demeanor cracked only when Detective Hayes placed the evidence folders on the table. Surveillance photos, bank transfers, text messages. "We found your husband," Mrs. Carter, Hayes stated. "He's alive." Naomi's shoulders sagged, not in shock, but release. The inevitable weight of discovery finally landing. "He was never supposed to suffer," she said quietly. "Marcus promised he would be comfortable. That was our agreement." Her confession unfolded with disturbing clarity. Yes, she had orchestrated Darius's disappearance. Yes, she had paid Marcus to keep him hidden. Yes, she had collected the insurance money. "You don't understand what it's like," she told Hayes, her voice hollow. 15 years of gambling debts, multiple affairs, watching him drain our daughter's college fund. The banks were foreclosing. Collection agencies called every day. I couldn't divorce him. He swore he'd take everything, leave us with nothing. When asked if she regretted her actions, Naomi looked directly at Hayes. "I regret trusting Marcus. I regret not finding another way. But I don't regret protecting my daughter's future." The most devastating moment came at the police station, where Darius and Naomi faced each other for the first time in nearly a year. Separated by a table in an interview room, they appeared as strangers, the familiarity of nearly 2 decades of marriage erased by betrayal. "You buried me alive," Darius said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You buried us long before that," Naomi replied. "You buried our marriage in casino chips and other women's beds. You buried Imani's future when you emptied her college account. So you decided I deserved to disappear? To sit in darkness while you collected insurance money? You told me you'd rather be dead than married to me. I just made everyone believe you got your wish." Their confrontation continued, years of accumulated resentment and pain compressed into 20 minutes of raw accusation, until officers separated them. Outside the station, news crews gathered as word spread through Willow Creek. Neighbors who had attended Darius's memorial service watched in disbelief as he emerged, alive, from a police vehicle. Those who had brought food to comfort the grieving widow now struggled to reconcile their sympathy with the shocking truth. "We lived next door for years," one neighbor told reporters. "We never suspected. How do you not know something like this is happening right beside you?" The legal system processed the Carter case with unprecedented speed. Naomi Carter pleaded guilty to fraud, false reporting, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Her nursing license was permanently revoked. Despite her attorney's arguments about her previously unblemished record and the abuse she had suffered, the judge sentenced her to 12 years in state prison. The calculated nature of this deception and the psychological trauma inflicted cannot be overlooked, the judge stated during sentencing. "You chose an elaborate scheme over legitimate paths to resolve your marital difficulties." Marcus Bell received a harsher sentence, 18 years without possibility of early parole. His prior criminal record, which included fraud convictions in 2 other states, significantly impacted the court's decision. Prosecutors revealed that this wasn't his first time participating in insurance schemes, though it was certainly his most extreme. For Darius, freedom brought its own challenges. The man who emerged from captivity carried deep psychological wounds alongside his physical deterioration. Medical examinations revealed malnutrition, vitamin D deficiency, and untreated hypertension. Therapy sessions focused on his adjustment to a world that had moved on without him, a world where his own obituary obituary existed in newspaper archives. Finding employment proved nearly impossible with a year-long gap he couldn't explain without revealing his humiliating story. Friends who had mourned him now maintained awkward distances, unsure how to relate to someone who had experienced such an unusual trauma. "I'm a ghost trying to become solid again," he told his brother Tyrell, who offered temporary housing. "Everyone looks at me like I'm a walking miracle or a freak show." The insurance company immediately filed to recover the $750,000 paid to Naomi, initiating legal proceedings that would entangle Darius for years, despite his victimhood in the scheme. The family home, already in foreclosure before the incident, was lost completely. Imani Carter, perhaps the most innocent victim, made the painful decision to live with her maternal grandmother in Savannah. At 17, she transferred schools mid-senior year, leaving behind friends and academic achievements to escape the whispers and stares. "I love my parents," she wrote in a statement read at both sentencing hearings, "but their choices have destroyed what family meant to me. I'm starting over somewhere people don't know my story." The community of Willow Creek processed the revelation through waves of shock, betrayal, and morbid fascination. Neighbors who had comforted Naomi now questioned every interaction. The memorial service attendees wondered how they had missed signs of deception. Local media dissected every detail of the case, prompting community discussions about the masks people wear and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. "We thought we knew them," said Elaine Thompson, Naomi's former friend and colleague. "It makes you wonder what else we don't see about the people around us." Before we conclude this extraordinary true crime story, take a moment to subscribe to Mr. Body Crime for more cases that reveal the darkest corners of human behavior and the important life lessons we can learn from them. Hit that notification bell to never miss an upload. The Carter case teaches us that desperation can transform ordinary people into architects of extraordinary deception. Naomi was not a born criminal. She was a woman who saw no legitimate exit from her circumstances. When conventional solutions seemed insufficient, she convinced herself that extreme measures were justified. This rationalization, that the end justifies the means, paved her path to prison. The psychological cost of maintaining such an elaborate lie proved enormous. Naomi's daily life became a performance, each interaction layered with falsehoods that required constant maintenance. This constant vigilance eventually created cracks in her facade that Imani and Detective Hayes were able to detect. No deception, no matter how carefully constructed, can withstand indefinite scrutiny. For Darius, the consequences of his earlier choices, the gambling, the affairs, the financial irresponsibility, manifested in ways he could never have imagined. His story reminds us that our actions create ripples that can return as tidal waves, often when we least expect them. Perhaps most tragically, Imani's experience demonstrates how the sins of parents invariably affect their children. Despite having no part in the deception, she bears its heaviest burden, the loss of both parents and her sense of stability and trust. The Carter family's dissolution serves as a powerful reminder that facing difficult truths, however painful, is ultimately less destructive than burying them. Honest confrontation of marital problems, financial struggles, and personal failures might have been excruciating, but it would have spared 3 lives from ruin. As we reflect on this case, we must ask ourselves, what situations in our own lives are we trying to escape rather than address? What truths are we avoiding? What facades are we maintaining at increasing cost to our integrity? The answers to these questions might be uncomfortable, but as the Carter family discovered, the alternative to facing difficult truths can be far more devastating than we ever imagined.